So I wanted to talk now all about Malthusian thinking and its relation to green politics and the political theory that underpins movements like the Green Party, and whether or not the Green Party are Malthusian in any sense in the modern world. And I think this bears discussion since I recently saw the rather influential young YouTube commentator Ollie Fletcher with his channel Farming Explained talking about this link that the Green Party has with Malthusian thinking and the green movements from the 1970s and so on, being very much enthused by this sort of opinion and being very much, advocating for things like population controls and stable populations or even lower populations. And I'll try and get into the sort of logic that underpins that kind of thinking during the course of this video. But I think really, for the time being, what I want to say about populations and Malthusian thinking and this relationship between populations and resources is that it is very real indeed. We can't expand our populations arbitrarily. We can't have this situation in which every square meter of land on Earth is taken up by a human being, because then there's no space to move around, for one thing, and there's no way in which we can farm the land or make use of the resources, and it's a sort of a ludicrous position really to in economic thinking, because it would never happen. There would be natural checks and balances which would intervene to lower the population if anything like that were to ever occur. If we were to be breeding like bacteria and so on, and populating the entire earth with only human beings and no animals or anything else like this, it would never happen in practice, because we rely upon the biome for feeding ourselves. So we need to keep the animals alive, we need the trees for oxygen and this sort of stuff, and we need other forms of life to exist to support our own lives. So I don't think we may have quite realised the population limits yet on Earth, though maybe we have, because I'm not certain exactly how fast the population really is growing now on Earth. It's certainly grown dramatically in terms of human beings over the last couple of centuries, and especially since the start of the Industrial Revolution and so on. From about 1750 in England, you find population increases from about 5.5 million or so to about 8.9 million or so in 1801, when the first censuses were occurring. And that's a rather dramatic increase in population, made possible by all sorts of things, technological advances and so on, technological advances in agriculture, the expansion of agriculture. And I think that green politics nowadays really doesn't go in for Malthusian thinking so much, but really reflects the kind of an eco politics that's concerned with the protection of nature and wildlife and the natural world around us. And this does include things like not using pesticides in agriculture, not using fungicides and herbicides and all these sorts of things. Ideally, limiting the amount of space that we use for agriculture so that we can be rewilding more areas, and allowing populations of insects, ground nesting birds, or just birds in general, and earthworms and things like this, and to proliferate more than anything connected to human agriculture. And this is something that I deeply support, and I think is a good argument for controlling human populations. And I think that very largely when societies become more post-industrial, like the societies that we have in the West, in the modern world, in the contemporary world, perhaps I should say, and these societies exhibit lower fertility rates. There's a lower birth rate that occurs when a society becomes more technologically advanced and more liberal. And I think that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. It's motivated by all sorts of factors. There's the breeding characteristics of individuals within society. You still get men who are raging with testosterone, who want to have sex at every available opportunity, obviously. And women, I think, become less promiscuous in times of economic stagnation, which is really sort of what we've been going through in the last period of time since 2008, I think. How many years is that? That's what... Oh, math is not my strong point. I'm sorry. 18 years. No. Yes. Yes, it is 18 years. That's 2026. It's 19 years. Oh my god, I forgot what year it was. Bloody hell. I'm still in the mode of thinking it's 2025, but there we go. So, yeah, Malthus argued for the geometric increase in population as opposed to the arithmetic increase in agricultural productivity, which was true for the pre-industrial period. But he also acknowledged in his later essays that rises in living standards may very well occur with increased populations and increased urbanization. And really, he was writing very much like Adam Smith and these sorts of thinkers at the inception of the Industrial Revolution, at the earliest stage of the Industrial Revolution. And I think concerns over population, these are echoed into the modern world, and they are echoed into green movements, sure. And it is something to be taken rather seriously, because we can't... I don't know what we would do to the biome if we used every square inch of land solely for food production. And I don't know what I want to say next. Like, I'm a science fiction writer, for example, and I wrote this little poem once called "The Story of Pilot Propagator," which was based on this magic mushroom trip that I had at one point where I had dramatic visions of the future. I was thinking about this machine that gets invented in the future that perhaps I have even invented, or this system of growing crops called photofluorination, or a photofluorinator, which is basically a huge array of a lattice-like structure of hydroponic pods in which plants are grown, which creates like 3D wheat fields all around the earth and vastly increases productivity. And again, undermines the central thesis of the Malthusian argument that technological advances can come along to radically increase our agricultural productivity. But I mean, do you really want the whole landscape covered in fucking photofluorinators? Like, these would be mile-high structures made out of plastic and things like this, and would conduct water up the structures or trap rainwater from clouds to fertilize crops and make ideal use of sunlight, and have LED UV bulbs within the structure to provide the crops with light, because a lot of it would be shaded, obviously. And yeah, maybe with some invention like that, we could increase our productivity radically, and we could become a hyper productive agricultural economy, producing vast amounts of food to feed enormous amounts of humans. But at what cost? At the cost to every other fucking form of life who doesn't have the capacity to expand their populations in quite the same way that humans do, that lack opposable thumbs and things like this, and lacks the brain power to come up with inventions which could radically increase our capabilities at producing food. I'm a big fan of the green agricultural message that farmers should be custodians of the countryside. I'm a farmer myself. I love wildlife. I would never run a farm where the modus operandi is purely profit from the from agricultural activities. I would always want some element of conservation involved with my agricultural produce. I would limit the amount I produced to preserve, say, the habitats of wildlife and so on, if I could. And I would want to keep the countryside productive, yes, but beautiful also, and hospitable to organisms that are not human beings, wildlife, and to protect habitats, and to encourage green energy and things like this. And I resent Ollie Fletcher's message in a way, because I think he's put himself deeply on the wrong side of history. I think he's basically crafting propaganda for reform, and it points to this Malthusianism supposedly of the Green Party, and he gave very, very weak examples of where this has been put into practice in their policy. I was digging something up from like the 1970s where where they were talking about people living sustainable lives without too much excess, and he was saying, that means they want to bring back peasantry. Like, well, no, it doesn't. It does not mean they want to bring back bonded labour or serfdom. It certainly does not mean that. It means they want everyone to live within their fucking means. And everyone should live within their means, I think. And the means of the poorest should be expanded, and the means of the richest should be kept in check, and we should have the redistribution of wealth and socialism and these sorts of things where we can live harmoniously with one another, where we're never going to starve to death, we're never going to lack for a roof over our heads, and all these sorts of things. And we can still be productive, valuable members of society and contribute great things which enrich us as a society. And yeah, I don't think there is a hell of a lot. There's no strict Malthusianism in contemporary green movements, but there is a concern about the population. Like, what if some advance in agriculture comes along in the future that radically increases our potential to produce food, and hence radically increases the population? Or do we have even greater megacities, possibly the countryside littered with plastic hydroponic growing arrays, which are these photofluorinators that I imagined at one point. And I hope to God no one ever thinks that I'm the inventor of the photofluorinator, because I certainly am not. I'm just building on the inventions that have gone before that. I'm kind of looking ahead, and I certainly hope no one thinks that that's a good idea, that we should do that and destroy the countryside and wreck it with huge plastic towers producing vast amounts of food. I don't believe in that at all. And as someone with ecological sensibilities and a passion and compassion for nature, I think that it is wrong to reject Malthusian thinking, and it's wrong to say that technology can save us from every, we can increase populations arbitrarily based on future technological advances. I don't think we should be advocating for that at all. No. And I think we should limit populations to sensible numbers, and hence allow a lot more rewilding, and allow nature to take over at least bits and pieces of the land that we no longer need, and that we can observe all sorts of things starting to emerge, like silver-studded blue butterflies and brown hair streaks and other butterflies and damselflies and dragonflies and moths and bees and whatever else that feeds on the abundance of wild flowers we might be growing, as opposed to yet more crops for human consumption. I don't want planet Earth to be just about human fucking beings and just an enormous industrial complex. I don't want this in the future. I don't want like huge cities sprawling everywhere, and I don't want hydroponic growing because I can see it happening. I don't want any of that shit. I want wildlife, nature, wild bits of countryside, wilder bits of land. That's what I want. I want to see things other than another fucking human being. I don't want our populations to become bigger. I want them to become smaller, if anything. And I think that's the trend that starts happening. And Malthus actually pointed this out. He said that as societies become more liberal, the populations start decreasing because people start having children later and they have fewer children. And that is a conscientious reaction to an increase in population, I think, and a conscientious reaction to increases in technological advancement and political sophistication. And I think that actually we should be conscientiously also allowing our populations to reduce a little bit, and fewer people should be having children. And we need to keep in mind that we're organisms, just one species, really, bounded to a finite plane, and that many other organisms rely on this as well, and that our agriculture in the 20th century and in the, well, less in the 19th century, but and in the 21st century has wrought destruction upon the natural world and has depleted nature, and we now live in a world where, yeah, there are fewer animal habitats and things like this. So no, Ollie Fletcher, I don't agree with your position on the Green Party at all. And I think you need to go back to fucking school, read up on Malthus for one thing, read up on the Green Party for another, and consider your position as a leftist, if you want to call yourself that. Because guess what? The rest of the left wing is on board with the Green Party at the moment, and you're on the wrong side of fucking history. Cheers for watching, everybody. See you soon.